What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my game picks and predictions heading into week number 14 of the 2024 college football season, also known as Rivalry Week. Rivalry Week starts pretty much tonight. We got some games coming up tonight and then, of course, tomorrow, and then mainly the games on Saturday. So it's kind of going back to like Labor Day, even though there's not like a full weekend of college football. It's really like, a 3-day kind of like college football week. So Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we got games coming up for you tonight and then continuing until Saturday. And I really look forward to this weekend every single year. I really love Rivalry Week. It's one of my favorite weekends of all time in college football. So I picked out 10 of the biggest rivalry games coming up this week, even though there might be some rivalries on here that maybe are not like considered to be a rival, but most of them are big rivals. So going back to my predictions from last week, my overall record was 6-4, so I got 6 out of the 10 games right and then 4 games wrong. And my overall record heading into the final weekend of this college football season is now 79-53. So let's go ahead and jump into my predictions here for Rivalry Week, also known as Week 14 of this college football season. We start here with a Friday night game coming up tomorrow night. I meant to put a November 29th instead of November 30th. This game is actually on Friday night. It's Georgia Tech at Georgia, 7:30 Eastern Time on ABC. You got Georgia favored by 19.5 in this one, and the over and under sitting at 53.5. Georgia coming off a little bit of a bounce back win after their loss to Ole Miss back in the month of November. But Georgia, they played well against Tennessee. That's probably the best game that they've played pretty much all year, maybe except for like the Texas game and the Clemson game. But at times we've seen Georgia really good at times, and then sometimes they look bad, especially on the offensive side of the football. It's not really been their year on that offense with Carson Beck at quarterback. But they head into a rivalry game here against Georgia Tech. A lot of people think that Georgia's going to just run away with this one. I know that's a really high spread there at 19.5. But I don't think so. I think Georgia Tech's got a pretty good opportunity to compete in this game. Last year's game was pretty close, so I do expect this game to be a little bit closer maybe than last year. But I still think Georgia overall is the better team, and I don't really think Georgia should really lose here in Athens. I think, playing in Athens, that really does favor Georgia, and that's probably the reason why the spread is so high. If this game was on the road at Georgia Tech, then Georgia Tech might have a chance to pull off the upset. I think the Yellow Jackets really will try to run the football in this game as much as they can and probably waste the clock down, but I don't think it will be enough. I think Georgia playing in Athens, that does favor them here. And again, this game is tomorrow. It is on a Friday night, so that's really surprising to see Georgia play on a Friday night. But got to go with the Bulldogs here in this one, 38-24, just because they're playing at home. Next up, we got the game, Michigan at Ohio State, noon Eastern Time on Fox. Ohio State, of course, favored by 21 in this one, and the over and under sitting at 53.5. You got Ohio State that just beat Indiana last week. They're coming off that big win over the Hoosiers. Ohio State played pretty well on the defensive side of the football. You got two pretty even defenses here. Michigan has been a little bit of a disappointing team, but last week they played their best offensive game against Northwestern. Northwestern, though, isn't really that good, to be honest. I'm kind of surprised that Michigan kind of didn't overlook Northwestern, and they kind of, focused ahead to this game, but, Michigan did get a big win, so Michigan might have a little bit of momentum going into this game, but I don't really think this game is going to be all that close. Ohio State, they've lost to Michigan now for the last 3 years. It's kind of, their year to kind of get back to where they used to be in this rivalry. And Ohio State has not beaten Michigan since 2019. And yes, I do say 2019 because 2020 game, that did not happen, of course, because of the COVID year. I think Ohio State would have won that game pretty much because Michigan was disappointing that season. And this looks like the Michigan team that kind of played like in 2020, but Ohio State, I think this will be a competitive game. It will probably be close in the first half, but Ohio State will definitely pull away because of their defense, and their offense will make plays down the stretch. Got to go with the Buckeyes here. I think they get this win and they get to the Big Ten championship. They beat Michigan here in the game in the biggest rivalry of college football, 28-10. Next up, Tennessee at Vanderbilt, another noon game here on ABC. Tennessee favored by 10.5. And the over and under is sitting at 48.5. Of course, this is a rivalry that Tennessee has pretty much been dominating over the last few years, but Tennessee, this is a must-win for them. I talked about them yesterday in the upset alert video. They got to win this game in order to kind of make the college football playoff, in order to kind of get in there as an at-large team, because they're sitting there in the 12-team playoff bracket field. So, yeah, this is a must-win here for Tennessee, and a lot of people think Tennessee might just roll in this game, but no, that's really an incorrect answer there. Vanderbilt's been a pretty solid team. I know that, the season hasn't gone for them as of late. This is not the same Vanderbilt team that we saw, against Kentucky and Alabama. But they've had a tough schedule here in the month of November. Maybe that's the reason why. And they're just not really on the level of those other teams. But we've seen Vanderbilt compete with Alabama and Texas. I mean, they got a pretty good chance here to compete in this game. Tennessee's offense really is not as explosive as it was, that we thought we were going to be. But, Tennessee here, I think they're definitely the better team. I think it's a close game. I think Vanderbilt does bring Tennessee here to the fourth quarter. I think a turnover probably is the difference, or maybe it is a game-winning touchdown. Maybe Tennessee is down and they get a game-winning touchdown, but they win this game. I think I'm going to go with Tennessee here in this one, but it's a close game, 28-24. Again, it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. Again, Tennessee has dominated the series as of late, but, Vanderbilt, I wouldn't be surprised here if they pulled off a huge upset. This would probably be the biggest upset of the weekend in the SEC, in my opinion. Maybe there's other games out there, but Tennessee and Vanderbilt, this one should be a good one. All right, South Carolina at Clemson, another noon game on ESPN. Clemson favored by 2.5, and the over and under sitting at 49.5. Not expecting a lot of points in this one. You got two very well even defensive teams going at it here. South Carolina's been a pretty good defense all season. The offense has clicked in and, clicked on, and, maybe some clicked off a little bit some. But, yeah, this is a really good South Carolina team. They're well coached. Shane Beamer seems like he's got this program back in the right direction. And if you think about it, back in the offseason, I was not really high on South Carolina, but now this team is starting to prove everyone wrong. And then you look at Clemson here on the other side. They've been a much more better team on the offensive side of the football all year long. And it seems like their defense is still the same as well. Remember a couple years ago in this rivalry, South Carolina went on the road and beat Clemson in Death Valley. Could this same thing happen like it did a couple years ago? I really don't think so. I think Clemson will probably avenge that loss from a couple years ago. I think some Clemson players actually were a part of that game, and they just want revenge here, and they want to win in front of their home crowd. But this is a low-scoring game. It's a close game. I'm going to go with Clemson here just because of the home field advantage. They win this one 20-17. It is a revenge game for South Carolina last year, but I'm going to go with the Tigers here in a low-scoring game. Again, defensively, both defenses will probably pretty much rule the day. I think a turnover, maybe a game-winning field goal probably is the difference here, but I got to go with Clemson here, 20-17. Next up, Notre Dame at USC, 3:30 Eastern Time on CBS. Notre Dame favored by 7.5, and the over and under sitting at 51.5. You got Notre Dame that's been on a winning streak for quite some time, ever since like week number 2. This is a Notre Dame team that's just been so dominant, but they haven't really played anybody that tough, to be honest, since like maybe Texas A&M or maybe like also Louisville and maybe some other teams out there. But yeah, this is not going to be an easy game here for Notre Dame. I mean, if they lose this game, they're still in the college football playoff as an at-large team, but you like to get a win here and at least probably host a first-round like home game in the playoffs. So I think that probably is the key for Notre Dame going into this game. I've been really impressed with their defense. You look at USC, though, on the other side. USC not really as good as we thought they were going to be. They have a tough schedule all season long. And they've been pretty quiet. I haven't really, watched USC a lot over the course of the year. The only time I did watch them was probably in that LSU game and that Wisconsin game. They were in my top 25 sometime over the year. But, Notre Dame, I think they're the better team here. I think USC can probably make this game close for a while. I think second half it's going to be all Notre Dame, and I think they probably pull away. They don't really score a lot of points like they did against Army, but I think they win this one 27-14. And I just don't think USC will be able to keep up with the running game with Notre Dame either. So I got Notre Dame winning this one 27-14. They make the college football playoff. Then we got the Iron Bowl, Auburn at Alabama, 3:30 Eastern Time on ABC. Alabama favored by 11.5, and the over and under sitting at 52.5. Yeah, that spread really shocked me yesterday, that Alabama was favored by 11.5. This is an Alabama team that's coming off an embarrassing loss to Oklahoma last week. They took on a really good defensive team in Oklahoma, but that upset really just came out of nowhere. This is a must-win for Alabama in order to stay alive in the playoff field. I mean, obviously Tennessee's got to win, but if Tennessee loses, Alabama is still alive in the playoff race. But you just look at this matchup. Auburn is desperate here to get a win because they got to get one more win to get to a bowl game. We've seen Auburn struggle at Tuscaloosa, Alabama over the years. That's been really kind of the case here with Auburn, throughout this rivalry. And we've seen them not struggle at Jordan-Hare. If this game was at Jordan-Hare Stadium, this would definitely be a tougher game here for Alabama than the Oklahoma game. And it might be even uglier because Alabama made so many mistakes last week. If those mistakes continue going into this game, then Auburn's got a pretty good shot here to pull off the upset. But I don't think it will be enough, but it's one of those other classic Iron Bowl games. I mean, it could be another overtime game like it was, close to last year, maybe like a couple years ago. But I got to go with Alabama here just because of the home field advantage. But like I said, a close game. I'm going Alabama here 31-28 over Auburn in the Iron Bowl. This one's at 3:30 Eastern Time on ABC. Looking forward to this game. Next up, Miami at Syracuse, 3:30 Eastern Time on ESPN. Miami favored by 11, and the over and under sitting at 67.5. We're expecting a lot of points to be scored in this one. This is a must-win here for Miami. Miami needs to win this game in order to kind of make it to the conference championship game, because if they win this game, they'll be in the ACC championship, and they will go up against SMU. But this is a Syracuse team that's really capable of pulling off the upset. I mean, Syracuse had a really impressive performance last week. I've been really impressed with Kyle McCord pretty much throughout the time here he's been at Syracuse. He's a lot more better than he was at Ohio State. I think this offense really does fit him pretty well. This is one of those games that really can go either way. It really is going to be a shootout here because of the over and under, and I think both offenses are pretty much even. And like I said, we've seen Miami, come out of nowhere in the second half and played much better. First half, it seems like they don't really play that good, but then second half, they start to get it going. But I think Syracuse, if they get off to a fast start, then Miami's not going to have a chance to come back in this game. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I think Miami does put up a fight here, but I'm actually going to go with a big upset here. I'm going to go with Syracuse to pull off an upset here. I'm going Syracuse, 49-42, again, a shootout here. And in the offseason, I did pick Syracuse to win this game. I'm going back to my preseason pick here, and I'm still picking the orange here to pull off the upset. Again, I'm going Syracuse 49, Miami 42. Next up, Arizona State at Arizona in the Big 12, another 3:30 game here on Fox. Arizona State favored by 8.5, and the over and under sitting at 53.5. This is a must-win for Arizona State as well. So we had 3 teams in a row now that are kind of, must-win situations. Arizona State needs to win this game in order to make it to the Big 12 championship. They're coming off a huge win against BYU last week, 28-23. Can they keep that momentum going in here against their rival Arizona? This is always an entertaining game. Arizona, of course, beat Arizona State last year, if I'm not mistaken. The Wildcats, though, they're sitting there at 4-7. It's kind of been an up and down year for them. But I think they're capable of pulling off the upset. But I don't think it will be enough. Arizona State's been really surprised me a lot throughout the, year and everything. And I think Arizona State gets a huge win here on the road at Arizona. But it's a close game. 24-20 is what I'm going to go with here. I got the Sun Devils winning here against the Wildcats. Next up, we got the biggest game of the weekend. Texas at Texas A&M, 7:30 Eastern Time on ABC. Texas favored by 5.5, and the over and under sitting at 48.5. So Texas and Texas A&M, a rivalry that's back here, this time as SEC opponents instead of Big 12 teams. They met each other back at College Station, Texas in 2011. And Texas came away with that win. So Texas has played here at Kyle Field, but it's been a very long time. You got Texas A&M that's coming off a tough loss to Auburn last week in 4 overtimes. Can they bounce back here in this one? Texas, they're coming off a huge win against Kentucky. Texas hasn't really played a big game like this in quite a while, probably since the Georgia game. And then, the other game was probably Michigan. And then you had, maybe some other games out there that have been big. But, yeah, Texas hasn't just played a lot of big games this year. It's probably been, since that Georgia game, since they last played a big game like this. And they need to bring their A game, because if they win this game, they're automatically in the SEC championship. But if Texas A&M wins, they will steal that spot away. And Texas A&M still got a chance to make the college football playoff. And I'm actually going to go with the upset. I think this is a low-scoring defensive battle. I think Texas A&M's defense will make a lot of stops in this game, and they pressure Quinn Ewers at quarterback. I think it probably comes down to a turnover. I think it probably also could come down to a field goal. But I got to go with the Aggies here just because it's really a tough place to play at College Station, Texas. I know, Notre Dame beat Texas A&M here at College Station, Texas, but Texas has not been here in a very long time. So Texas A&M wins this one. I'm going with the Aggies here in the rivalry game, 24-21. And then finally, we got Kansas State at Iowa State in the Big 12 at 7:30 Eastern time on Fox. Iowa State favored by 2.5, and the over and under sitting at 51.5. Both of these teams ranked in the top 25 in the playoff rankings. Another must-win here for a team like Iowa State. They got to win this game to get to the Big 12 championship, just like Arizona State. Iowa State's been pretty up and down this year, but they're 9-2, so they've had a really good season. It looked like after they lost, a couple of games to Texas Tech and everything, and then also another team that they lost to, if I can't remember correctly. It seems like, they were out of the Big 12 championship picture, but they're now back in it. But you look at this Kansas State team, I think they're kind of hungry here for a win at this point. This is also a revenge game here from last year. Kansas State got beat by this Iowa State team at their home place. I think they return the favor here, and I think Kansas State's going to ruin Iowa State's, championship hopes, and they will knock them out of that playoff picture as well. I got to go with Kansas State here to pull off a huge upset on the road, 21-17. Again, I think these are really two well-coached teams, but I give the advantage to Kansas State and the coaching staff, so I got to go with the Wildcats here, 21-17. So those are my game picks and predictions heading into rivalry weekend, also known as week number 14 of this 2024 college football season. Let me guys know what you think about my game picks and predictions down in the comments below, and give me your predictions on these 10 games. And thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.